Good evening. This is the January 22nd meeting of the East Long Meadow Town Council. I'll open the meeting now with a pledge of allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As we reflect, we're reminded of our responsibilities as elected officials for the town, and I also ask you to keep our servicemen and women around the globe, as well as our first responders, in your thoughts this evening. Thank you. Pursuant to Massachusetts general law, this meeting is being taped, and if there are any individuals in the audience who are videotaping or audio taping the meeting, I'd ask you to please identify yourselves. Thank you. Seeing none, we'll move on. Public comments. Mr. Florence, do we have any registered for this evening? Okay, thank you. Council comments. Anyone this evening?
I have one quick one through the chair.
Mr. Ford?
I had a resident call me today to ask some questions about the recent assessments that had gone out and increase in her taxes. So I had a nice conversation with her, and then I followed up with Diane Bishop, who offered to speak with her. Learned a lot through Diane. She was very patient to spend time with me as well, and understand that there's a lot of factors that go into this. This isn't just, we just didn't decide to do it this year. Explain to the resident what we control as a council in terms of the budget, and the budget equals a mill rate, but there's a lot that goes into the assessed value of homes and why some people got some increases, some didn't see much of anything, and very few saw decreases. Mm-hmm. So I had mentioned that Diane, if she has some time, to maybe come to our next council meeting and do a little 101 as to what she explained to me. I don't want to try to represent it because there was just too many different factors that she was trying to explain. So hopefully she can join our next meeting and give a little bit of background and education on it, since we're starting to field a lot of questions.
Good. Okay. Thank you. Any other comments from the council?
I would just say that I had the luxury of meeting with Diane myself today on the same topic, but it had more to do with valuations of pre-existing properties versus brand new residential properties, and learned quite a bit just in the area of depreciation, but the time was well spent, and I appreciate your efforts today, Diane, and look forward to seeing you in the future.
Good. Thank you. If there are no other comments, we'll move on to Town Manager Report. Denise.
Good evening.
Hello.
Good evening.
At the suggestion of a citizen, I will begin setting aside a public office hour every week. Every Friday afternoon from 1 to 2. It'll be posted on the newspapers. We've done a press release, Facebook, the website, all of that. So it might give residents that are concerned that they're interrupting, or it's a time that I'm already in a meeting or committed to something else, that they might feel more comfortable if they know that they have a certain time. So we're asking them to just call, make an appointment, and the time is set aside every week. So that'll be a little bit of a change. To improve the capital budget process, I've asked 3 residents to assist with capital planning this year. They'll assist with review and recommendations for the 2020 fiscal year capital projects. The residents I've asked are 2 former Appropriation Committee members, James Broderick and James Walsh, and Jean Delaney, who has experience with capital planning at Monsanto. We met this morning. It was a great meeting. Actually, it was this afternoon. It was a great meeting. Good people, solid in knowing what capital is supposed to be. So it should be, and we're going to do an aggressive calendar now that Sarah is back. As a result of the Public Works inflow and infiltration studies, the department has implemented the 2019 Clearwater Disconnect Program. I've attached the description of the program. Implementation of this program is projected to result in significant savings annually. Also, attached for your information is a copy of a letter that's going to be going out to residents that have been found to be out of compliance with the regulations. In addition, you'll find an update to the status of developers' bonds held by the town from Bruce Finney. He sent me that memo earlier this month. At the January 16th department head meeting, there was discussion about finding a more efficient and effective way to post meetings of agendas for boards, commissions, and the council, of course. I'm sure a better solution will be forthcoming. There was some preliminary discussion about maybe if we do this instead of that. So those people that are involved with that will be meeting and coming to some other solutions. In addition, working toward the goal of making the town's processes easier to maneuver, the departments that have a role in approving a business certificate will be meeting to look at simplifying the process for certain kinds of applicants. What was brought up is that people, for instance, that rent a chair at a nail salon don't need the same kind of all the information that the nail salon owner needs or the property owner needs to take out a business certificate. So it's kind of not one form fits all in this case, and we'll figure out a better way to do that. I attended the Veterans Memorial Committee fundraiser on February 16th. It was very well attended. Their next planned event is a dance in April. I'll let you all know the specifics once I have them. One of the things they have for sale is these little veterans bracelets as part of a fundraiser. They are very creative in trying to find different ways of getting the word out. They also have a sketch of a proposed memorial that I thought tonight would be a little too busy to have that come to you, but they'll come to a meeting soon with that. Tax bills went out on December 31st, and payments are due by February 1st, just a reminder for everybody. And finally, as the subject of the petition that's being addressed at the 6:30 public hearing, I'd like to comment briefly. Although I question the basis of much that was stated in the petition, I'm not going to comment on the articles in the petition. That is the purpose of the public hearing. Rather, my comments relate to my tenure in East Long Meadow. We are all aware that the charter mandated significant changes in East Long Meadow's government. We also know the change is always positive to some and negative to others. I will never say that every decision made in the last 2.5 years have been correct. However, I can say that they were made with the best interest of the town as the priority. Certainly, not everyone is happy with every change. However, I've heard quite often that many, many people see positive change with the new form of government. I hope we get beyond this evening with consideration to comments that will be made and move forward in a positive direction. Again, I only have the best interest of East Long Meadow at heart and will continue to work hard to make this an even better community than it is. Respectfully submitted, Denise Menard.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Denise? Seeing none, we'll move to number 6, approval of minutes. Approval of the January 8th, excuse me, open session minutes. You have those in your packet. I'll entertain a motion to accept those minutes unless there are additions or corrections.
Second.
All those in favor of accepting the January 8, 2019 open session minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Those abstaining? Aye. Approval of the January 8, 2019 executive session minutes.
Make a motion to accept the executive session minutes of January 8th as submitted.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. Those abstaining, please do so. Abstain. Thank you. Item number 7, communication, correspondence, and announcements. Mr. Florence, anything?
Right, there was that one a memo that I had sent out this afternoon from Mr. Robert Hill.
Okay. And just for the record, Mr. Robert Hill is no relation.
I didn't even think.
Well, I'm
Yeah, no, I
inquiring
never
minds.
connected.
Yeah, that's-
That's right, just so that.
And so Mr. Hill of 31 Oak Brook Drive has sent a letter to the council this evening elaborating on why his feelings about the definition, the proposed definition of commercial vehicles. And that matter we could take up later under the hearing for that at 7:10. Orders of the day, licensing matters. A one-day liquor license for St. Paul the Apostle Church for February 3rd for a fundraising dinner. I'm told by our clerk that the petitioner has withdrawn that request for a license, so that we'll move on from there. And then we have a one-day liquor license for St. Paul the Apostle Church for February 17, 2019, for a fundraising event with a one-man band.
I'd like a motion for that.
I would like a motion for that, yes, please.
So I'll make a motion to approve a one-day liquor license for St. Paul, the Apostle Church, for a fundraising event scheduled on February 17th, 2019, from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the one-day liquor license, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Item 8A3, Licensing Committee's recommendations to the Town Council regarding a BYOB policy. Back in December, I believe, on December 5th, the licensing subcommittee met to discuss whether or not there ought to be a BYOB policy for the town. One of the things that the subcommittee did was to review some information that was given to us from the clerk's office after calling around to a variety of towns around us, maybe 26 of them, as to their status of do they have a BYOB policy, do they not, and how they've handled it. And after discussion with the members of the committee, it is the committee's recommendation to the council that there be a policy that says East Long Meadow does not approve of a BYOB policy, and that there ought to be a bylaw that says we do not support a bring your own beverage to businesses or entities that are already not licensed under the normal ABCC method. So that said, I would entertain a motion to refer the matter to our bylaw committee.
I guess that's me. I'd like to make a motion to recommend to the bylaw committee a drafting of a BYOB policy to bring back to the town council for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Yeah, can we have a moment of discussion?
Yes, we can. All those, okay, so now discussion. Motion's been made and seconded.
My question is, from what I understand, there's, I think, 2 businesses in town that are affected by this.
Correct.
One of which has been in business for a number of years, and, because I remember going to their grand opening, so, but have we taken into consideration the fact that that's an integral part of this business and the potential for,
A loss of business.
a loss of business, a lawsuit, things like that?
Yes.
Because you've allowed them to proceed in this more, where the town has allowed them to proceed in this manner for 5 or 6 years, and all of a sudden they're pulling it out from under them, so to speak.
That did come up in the committee, and the discussion came back to, first of all, it was acknowledged that there's definitely one and possibly a second one who've operated this way, where the events that they're sponsoring, they would offer the BYOB, or the participants could bring a beverage to be enjoyed during the event. And the discussion went to the fact that first, during a hearing of the bylaw, that we would make every attempt to make sure those particular businesses were certainly invited to attend and have their say before the council. But we would also offer them the option of, in events where they felt it was important to have the BYOB option, that they could apply for a one-day license for those particular circumstances. And also in that same regard, there appears to be a growing trend in nail salons and day spas to suggest that, I'll use a bridal party, for instance. You know, the ladies in the bridal party go to a nail salon or a spa to get ready for the big day, you know, later in the day, and they bring champagne or other alcoholic beverages and enjoy them during the course of getting ready for the wedding. Right now, we don't have the BYOB bylaw on the books, but and the ABCC is deliberately silent on it. But they do acknowledge that in the absence of one, should something go awry during an event, the responsibility for liability lies with the town, because we have not spoken on it, which is what more or less provoked the discussion and why it's before us this evening to go to the bylaw committee.
Okay, thank you.
I might just add one other piece through the chair, that the vendors in town that are licensed felt that this would actually put them more of on a level playing field, where, you know, they're incurring a lot of fees with liquor license renewals and such, and it just made the field a little bit more level, and they were on board with that, definitely. So
Good. Okay, any further discussion? Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor of referring the recommendation for a BYOB policy bylaw to the bylaw committee, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously. Under 8B, financial matters, discussion of the FY20 budget process. Denise, I believe you wanted to speak about that.
I think I pretty much caught the council up on the capital plan process. I'm wondering what the council would like for deadlines for receiving their, the proposed budget, the recommended budget. And also, I have asked Kathy if it would be, if the council would consider having budget workshop meetings rather than putting budget discussion on the agenda. We could do a workshop on the alternate, maybe the alternate Tuesdays, to just devote that time particularly to the budget, and it probably will be a smoother process by doing that. It's the way I've had it done in the past, and it just takes it away from being part of the day-to-day business that you have to do on council nights, and it's not as rushed and much more devoted to just being part of a special meeting. I don't think you'd need a lot of them, but I think it...
2 or 3?
Yeah.
And as it relates to, because those would be additional meetings, if not all 7 of us were able to be there, as long as there was enough to have a quorum.
Right.
Just to get the work done, the actual roll up your sleeves and
questions being
okay.
asked. We'd have then another meeting to, if you ask questions at the workshop, I would be able to present them on the council night to everybody, but it would just probably make the process go a little smoother, I think.
Quick question through the chair. So what you're saying is a meeting like this, not the first meeting, but the second meeting, there would be allocated time within this second meeting for that?
No.
You mean a third meeting?
Correct.
Okay.
Like the alternate weeks that you don't meet, to have those be particular to budget workshop, where you're devoting, it can be an hour and a half or a 2-hour span of time just to talking about presentations on questions asked about just the budget.
In addition, if I may, through the
Sure,
chair.
certainly.
our discussion on the finance committee?
Yes.
How would that play into this?
Good question. The question is, how would that, how does the council has a number of standing committees, two actually, and 4 ad hoc committees right now. And one of the standing committees is the Financial Matters Committee. And so the question would be, how would now that recently created in this last calendar year, the Financial Matters Committee, what would be their role in a proposal such as what you're describing now? Let me back up for the crowd's benefit. Last year, we had Kevin, you chaired that, a financial subcommittee, a budget subcommittee. And we met, similar to what you're describing, there were 4 of us on it besides, and we would invite department heads. And we pretty much did that. We were doing the sharpen your pencil, talk with department heads work.
That was like line by line.
And we did line by line as they proposed.
But it was after the budget had been presented to you all, not...
Right, it was after
Correct.
the initial presentation,
Right.
we went to refine it, to try and get some numbers down, to see if we could stay within the percentages that we were looking for. We went department by department, line by line, looking to see
How we could adjust.
how we could adjust certain,
So, but what you're proposing is we're going to do that work with you and the department heads in advance of submitting a proposed budget document to the council.
To be able to give the council seems to want more information about the budget, more detail about the budget before my recommendations. So in order to do that, the way to do that would be to have some workshops.
Any thoughts from the
I
council?
think the workshops are good. The subcommittee is more like a fine tuning thing afterwards to see if there's things that we need to look at. Like, I know when we met specifically, like, the school budget is big, so we had to get an understanding of what,
Was it?
there's some differences too, because the supplemental budget requests were before thought to be necessity. And some people thought that they were wish list.
Correct.
So we've kind of straightened that out since last year, that there's not really a wish list, it's what you need. And that should be in your original proposal, which is something different from last year, but it's more like the fine tuning to see, all right, this is what we're looking at, take that full number and see if we can drill down a little further to find out how to refine it a little bit more, I guess.
And it might be
So
a
the
little
workshops
easier. Yeah,
work good for all of us. And then
to
the
get the
final,
information.
right, to get all the general information, but then the
Subcommittee,
subcommittee did the work on sort of like
shaving it down?
shaving it down.
Yeah,
if we
my
needed
words.
to, Yeah, yeah, so, I mean,
The loading tax.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, we wanted to stay within whatever the percent, and I can't off the top of my head recall now what the 2%.
Right,
or
but the
whatever it was.
parameters,
The
right.
parameters that we had set forth in the very beginning, we were above that. And then we also looked at some departments that were way under
And how to be,
and asked for certain things sort of on their supplemental request and came in on their budget because they cut on other areas. So we were able to give and take a little bit with those. So it worked out with like 4 of us sitting down with all the department heads to try and really get to the nuts and bolts of it. But the general workshops were good, I thought.
so to answer your question, I think there still is a place for both vehicles.
Oh, it's not my intent to eliminate.
No,
Or
I don't, not suggesting that, but I
sidestep,
think if there is a spot to do both. So is it the council's pleasure that we would entertain that opportunity to do some budget workshops?
I would think so.
Yes, I think it would be helpful.
It makes our council meetings much more efficient if the legwork is done prior.
Sure.
And the more information we have at our disposal, the better informed we are to make critical decisions. Okay,
Okay.
good. Thank you.
So we'll figure that out. Thank you.
Old business. Stormwater Enterprise Fund endorsement from the town council. Mr. Fenny, table is yours.
Did you also want, Sarah?
I'm sorry, Sarah?
Sarah also came
Certainly.
to speak on enterprise fund.
If Sarah can speak on it, yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I'm coming before you this evening to get a recommendation from the council on how to proceed forward with the stormwater enterprise, or not the stormwater enterprise fund, but the vehicle to fund the stormwater requirements for FY20. I did present a stormwater bylaw to the council previously, and I met with Mr. O'Connor from the bylaw subcommittee, and just trying to figure out how to proceed forward when preparing my budget.
And so, Mr. O'Connor, during that meeting, can you just summarize the
Sure.
outcome of that, please?
During the meeting, well, yeah, we actually had two meetings. The first meeting, we realized that we needed to have Mr. Fenny and Mr. Anderson there. Is that correct? Christensen, sorry. So during the discussion and the presentation, we decided that in the best interest of moving this forward, because it's a state mandated proposition here, that we create a budget that we can include into the town budget, so we can look at it in an encompassing way so that we can control the cost, not to exclude it or make it a separate process as a fee, as an enterprise fund, and as a bylaw. So the recommendation that we took and voted on and approved, which we're going to present to the rest of the council tonight, was to have them move forward, make it part of their operational budget, and vote on it in that manner.
May I?
Certainly.
I would recommend actually doing an enterprise fund for the stormwater. Like water and sewer, you can charge user fees for, based on what the state mandates, and then the funds stay there separate. They can only be used for stormwater. If you include it in your operational budget, then what happens is the revenue that you collect for that can be used for other purposes, such as salaries for another department, can be used for any other thing. So if you want to keep it self-contained as to, okay, that the user fees for the stormwater then go to pay for the costs of meeting the state requirements related to stormwater, then the enterprise fund is actually the best vehicle in order to do that and to ensure that the money that you collect is only spent for that purpose instead of it being spent on other purposes. Both means are acceptable by the state. Some of our neighboring communities, such as Longmeadow, are doing enterprise funds. That is what I would recommend.
Questions? Yes.
I know I emailed, and at that time, maybe a month ago, we had no idea what a typical family could be paying for this enterprise fund. Has that situation changed that we can at least anticipate? Are we talking $200 a family, $1,000 a family?
It's $25 for a resident. $25, which equates to about $2.08 a month.
Okay.
So for a single-family residence, if the assessment would be $25 per year.
$25 per year, and like I said, with an enterprise fund, we can revisit these fees on a yearly basis, like our sewer and water, and assess the needs of the town, and basically what we have found or investigated with our stormwater, and either reduce those costs or increase those costs based on that permit.
Yeah, they have a question.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
If, for instance, 5 years down the road, the state mandates that you do something that would be a major capital item, if you have a stormwater enterprise fund, that enterprise fund would pay for that capital. It would not come out of your operating budget. So that's a benefit as well.
So $25 per residence, how much per business?
It was all laid out in the bylaw. I do have the fee schedule. So for a single-family home, it's $25. For a commercial property, and it's based on land use code, so I don't want to give you too much. Yeah, so it's $100 for commercial properties, $200 for other commercial properties based on the land use code, $500 for residential and industrial. So it's 50, 100, 200, and 500.
You're looking at a pretty significant amount of money per year.
My estimates are $289,075.
Applying that formula you just spoke of.
Yes.
So,
And that's based on meetings with the assessor, getting land use codes, getting all that data and collecting it and coming up with that dollar figure, and based on what our needs are going to be for next year, which equated to, based on my estimates, $270,195.
to be in compliance with the mandate.
Yes.
So I'm just saying, so given the gross amount, wouldn't it be better to restrict that money can only be used for that? I mean,
We discussed it, and there's three major components of what he's proposing. The first is, it's an additional fee to the taxpayers, whether residential or commercial. And that fee can be changed, as Mr. Fenny mentioned, on a year-to-year basis, and we weren't comfortable with that. The second piece of it is, it's creating a new enterprise fund in the town, which is a significant thing. And the third piece is, it's a new bylaw.
Yeah.
So we were totally against that. Make it part of the operational budget. And in that way, we can help to control the cost. Mr. Fenny can create a budget for it and still do what he needs to do.
Yeah.
I had a question.
Yes.
If we make it part of the operational budget, that doesn't change the fact that the fees can change on an annual basis anyway.
There's no fee in charge.
I'm just saying, if you increase that budget, that increases the operational budget of the department exponentially. So it looks like the operations jump when that surcharge, whatever you want to call it, can change annually. You just said you can revisit that, so that makes your operational budget go up and down?
There will be no fee if it's part of my operational budget.
I got you.
No fee will be assessed to any resident. It would just be part of my budget.
Well, you could take that and use it somewhere else if you needed to.
Yes, it would be,
Okay.
it's currently a small portion of the highway budget, so that's where it would be, where it would lie.
So if it's just a line item in your general DPW budget, and you need $279,000 a year at minimum to comply with the state requirement, then the reality is when your budget comes to us, we still are compelled to, because it's a mandate, to figure out a way to include that in the general overall budget.
Right.
So I
And it
see
may
what Kathy's
change.
saying. I
Next
mean,
year.
essentially, if we don't charge a $25 fee, we're going to increase your budget line item anyhow, which means the mill rate's going to go up. So it's.
Well, we hope it doesn't.
But it
But we
could.
have no,
Can't say that.
but in year one, we essentially have no choice, right?
Well, it's part of the town operating budget, so we can cut elsewhere if we need to, so we can reduce the tax liability to our residents.
That's
Why
all-
don't you just have the
that-
fee go to the enterprise fund and pay the expenses out of the fund where the money came from?
I mean, I see what Tom's saying, though. I mean, but
No, I
that's a
get it,
lot
but
of,
I'm
that's a
just
lot of
saying-
money that's going to be cut from somebody's department. If you're saying that you want to equal it to zero.
On top of that, the next year, if they mandate some other kind of crazy thing, we have to increase the operational budget by
Some
another $600,000.
Is there a chance in year two that we don't have the same obligation, that you think it's going to be that much going forward each year?
It's going to change. It's going to actually get more stringent as we do our investigations through the MS4. We may find there's going to be significant increases in that budget based on what we find.
Just for our audience and our listening audience, MS4, the acronym that Mr. Fenny's using, is a very long word with
It's a NIPDES permit, National
Yeah.
Pollution Discharge Elimination System.
right, that's what he said. But it goes to the state's mandate about how towns and municipalities deal with runoff water from impervious surfaces such as roofs, driveways, parking lots, and how the water has to be managed so it doesn't pollute the earth.
Right.
And as you said, it's just starting to come into play in Massachusetts.
Right.
So I would agree, I don't see it getting more lenient. Historically, it always gets more stringent, and it's already an unfunded mandate,
Yes.
much like many other things that the Commonwealth hands down to the municipalities. So there is the potential that with the more stringent guidelines, that you will require more funds going forward.
Absolutely.
So if it's embedded in the budget, then your DPW budget could exponentially expand.
Yes.
And Sarah, go ahead.
I just had a quick question, Sarah, before you say this, because
Yep.
I know you had something to say.
Yep,
but,
that's okay. I'll remember.
So your recommendation is to do this fee,
The enterprise fund,
the
yes.
enterprise fund and a fee,
Yep,
right? Instead of an operational piece. And that money would specifically be just for that,
correct.
which, and you can track that. Doesn't that make tracking it easier later? And then you can kind of gauge, obviously, I think it's going to be an expense that we're going to be bearing for quite some time.
Right. Yes.
And like, it seems like it's just going to get bigger because they're going to come up with something else that we need to do and not give us any money.
We don't know what we're going to find once we,
Right, once you
these
start
first
looking at
few
the
years
testing
are
and all
going to
that.
be finding out what we're dealing with, and then we're going to have to fix it. And that's where the money's going to come in.
Some other benefits of an enterprise fund. First, for expenses, that an enterprise fund is supposed to include everything. So let's say that Mr. Fenny needs to hire an employee to be doing all of this. That employee's salary and benefits all have to come completely out of the enterprise fund, not out of the operational budget. And also, an enterprise fund, once you adopt one, which in the state of Massachusetts, the law changed that if you have an enterprise fund, it has to be a bylaw, so it's one and the same. If you do choose to do that, you could choose to undo it after you've given it a try for 3 years. So it's not, hey, we're stuck in there forever. If it really was something that wasn't working, we could pull out of that. The other thing is from a revenue standpoint, by doing it on a fee-based system, it's allocating the cost of it based on your biggest contributors to that cost. So if you have a business that has a huge parking lot, they are paying a bigger portion of the expense for it than a homeowner who only has their little driveway and their rooftop. So it's more equitable rather than if you put it in your operational budget, now you're saying everybody across the town has to pay the same amount regardless as to how much that they are contributing to that problem. So my personal opinion is I think that the enterprise fund and assessing the fee is a more fair way to deal with this unfunded state mandate.
Plus on that, just Kathy, there's more transparency with that part of it, it seems.
Correct.
Correct me if I'm wrong. If you did the enterprise fund, because I know exactly what Bruce spent for this particular project and where the money came, the $280,000 comes out of this, and I spent $260,000, I know exactly where if it's an operational piece, that's going to fluctuate back and forth anyway, and it just doesn't seem like, I could look at that and say, okay, well, I know exactly where it went, employee, whoever, vehicles, whatever you might need to do all this stuff. It's right there, separately from just an overall
Everything,
operation.
other divisions, yes.
Question for the chair.
Yes.
So the $25 is per person, so,
Per resident.
Per resident.
oh, residents?
Yes.
I thought you said per resident.
No.
That's why I was trying to figure that out.
No.
Residents.
Well, if you would, could you read the fee structure, please? Because I know there were additional costs.
For-
You mentioned the field of chestnuts, and they'd be paying a significant amount of money more.
I'm trying to understand your question, Tom.
I know we asked, you were going to go back and revisit the fee structure and try to organize it in a way that you could follow it rather than...
Yeah, that was just more of a formatting thing. I took out, it was like not a run-on sentence, but each land use code
Right.
with a number, so I actually just separated it out. So it's based on land use codes, so I'm trying to understand what
Well, the
you're-
one for the field of chestnut, I think was $100.
Fields of Chestnut was actually, it's $500 per building. There's 4 buildings on that lot. So based on the criteria or the funding source based on their impervious surface, it's going to be $500 per building.
That's not a home.
No.
You're talking about permanent structures that belong to the property management company?
I believe so.
Okay.
Any other questions regarding,
I would ask a question through the chair. Do we have any idea how much money you're anticipating and collecting, like year one?
Yes. Year one, projected revenue is $289,075.
Okay. Where I'm going with that is, I know these fees aren't going to go down, but if you collected that in year one and all those fees weren't exhausted, based on, what the state, once it's not an unfunded mandate.
Sure.
Or the state gives you a better idea of exactly what you're going to need to do. Would that fee be the same a year or two if all those funds weren't dispersed?
This would be like the storm, or the water and sewer enterprise fund. So on a yearly basis, we can all visit these fees and reduce them, increase them based on what we find or what the town's needs are moving forward.
That's what I anticipated, but thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Recommendation?
I think Joe has
Well, it
it.
would seem if I read this bylaw, I mean, I don't know, if I read this motion, it probably would not be correct.
Correct. What was presented, yes, would not be correct.
We can make a motion to include it. To form an enterprise fund for stormwater management operation.
Well, so by creating that motion, do we then refer it back to the bylaw committee to create the bylaw, to then come back to us for approval? Are we
Well,
going to
we
see
need
the
the
bylaw
bylaw.
before we approve any? We're not voting on approving it.
Right.
Was that?
Can't approve the
That's what I'm saying.
enterprise
So
fund
I just want to
until we
understand the sequence of,
have a bylaw in place.
and then we'll have more
Correct?
time to think it through and discuss it more.
So send it back to bylaw committee.
Right, so.
So that's all you need? You want a motion
Amend your
to?
motion
I'll
to,
make a motion to return it back to the bylaw subcommittee for draft of a bylaw for the stormwater management enterprise fund.
Second?
motion's been made and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor of referring this matter to the bylaw committee to draft a bylaw for the establishment of an enterprise fund for the MS4 needs, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Any abstentions? Thank you.
Can I stress that time is of the essence?
Yes, and
Because of the budgeting?
Yes. Oh, I thought you meant clock time now because we're over our
No.
time for them.
For the
Yes, for
enterprise
budgeting.
fund.
Your time is of the essence on multiple.
Time is of the essence on both matters.
Period.
Okay, I am going to move then, I need a motion to move out of order to number 9, public hearings.
Make a motion to move the agenda item 9, public hearings, out of order, only to return to regular order. Second.
Yeah.
It's moved
All
and
those,
seconded, Kathy.
yes, I'm sorry, I was listening
I
to
know you
Mr.
were.
Florence. All those in favor of moving out of order to move to 9A, public hearings?
Aye.
Please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. Okay, we are moving out of order then to item number 9 on our agenda, public hearings. 9A, the citizens petition. The reason for this public hearing is to conduct a hearing pursuant to Article 8, Section 2 of the East Long Meadow Home Rule Charter with respect to a petition addressed to the town council signed by a minimum of 100 voters and which appears to request passage of a measure specifying that the town manager be given no salary increase and that the town manager's contract not be renewed. Council members from left to right are Councilors Federici, Manley, Anderson, Hill, Kane, O'Connor, and Ford, and to my extreme right is Attorney Kevin Maynard, the counsel for the town of East Long Meadow. This will be a public hearing, and the procedure is as follows. There are multiple steps here. The hearing will be opened. The clerk will read the legal notice into the record. The petitioner, in this case Mr. Jeffrey Bosworth, will make a presentation regarding the petition. Then public input can begin. Since the meeting is being recorded, speakers must state their name and address. Speakers are asked to be direct and to the point and must address the presiding officer and not others. After the public has addressed the council, the public hearing will be closed. At that time, the council will discuss among themselves all points pertinent to the subject matter. The council will then either take a vote to approve the matter at discussion or to take the matter under advisement. That being said, this public hearing is now open. Mr. Florence, will you read the legal notice into the record, please?
Notice is hereby given that on Tuesday, January 22nd, 2019, commencing at 6:30 PM in the auditorium of the Council on Aging, located at 328 North Main Street, the East Long Meadow Town Council will conduct a public hearing pursuant to Article 8, Section 2 of the East Long Meadow Home Rule Charter with respect to a petition addressed to the Town Council pursuant to that provision, which petition appears to have been signed by a minimum of 100 voters, in which appears to request passage of a measure specifying that the town manager be given no salary increase and that the town manager's contract not be renewed. Information relating to this petition is on file with the town clerk and available for review by the public. For the council, Thomas Florence, clerk of the council.
Thank you. I would also like to mention that per the charter, during public hearings, as speakers are invited to the front here to address the council, there is a 3-minute limit on speaking. If there is an inordinate amount of speakers present, the council, by a majority vote, can reduce the amount of time, but also with respect to needing to hear the information, it would not do so in an extreme way. So that said, I would invite Mr. Bosworth to make his presentation regarding the petition.
Jeffrey Bosworth, 45 Millwood Drive, East Long Meadow. I initiated the petition, which I presented to the town council on December 11th, which was read into the record and was put on file, asked to be recorded as being on record with the council. I wasn't prepared that I knew that I was going to have to do a presentation tonight. However, the petition pretty much stands for itself. There was over 100 voters that signed the petition, and basically the petition stands on its merit, and I'm requesting the council vote based upon what the voters and the residents of this town would like to see happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other individuals in the audience who would like to speak this evening? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Karen Robitaille, 14 Western View Drive. Thank you for the opportunity to address the council regarding this petition as both a lifelong resident and a member of the Board of Health. In my dual role as a health professional and a school administrator, I can often be heard using the terms evidence-based practice and data-driven. I'm also a Capricorn, which makes me highly logical. It is with these lenses that I viewed with much curiosity the voter-initiated petition we are here tonight to discuss, especially since my experience with Ms. Menard as both a resident and a board member has been nothing but positive. I have found her to be consistently responsive, informed, articulate, and respectful. I began my research with a review of our charter, which was voted in 2016 with a voter turnout of record proportions, 36%, as compared to the decade that preceded it. The charter passed with 60% of voters in favor, considered a landslide by the reminder. Logically, this tells me that residents were ready for a new form of government that would provide, as former Selectwoman Susan Grimaldi stated in the reminder, total accountability. Indeed, the charter created a legislative branch in the town council and an executive branch in our town manager, each with its own duties. Those are outlined in the charter, so I'm not going to go through them. But this is the balance of power that we voted for. The town manager does not, in fact, have the limitless power that the petition refers to. I then turned to the evaluation which the town council recently completed of the town manager's performance over the last 6 months. It should be noted that a 6-month review is not the norm and was not undertaken because of any performance issue, but rather to get back on a proper timeline. The aggregate score in Ms. Menard's last evaluation was 4.258. The aggregate score in the current evaluation is 3.382, actually less than the full point difference the petition refers to. As an evaluator in my own work position, I know that it is very common to have some variance from year to year. What this tells me is that per the rating scale given, Ms. Menard went from above average, usually exceeding performance standards, to somewhere between average, generally meeting performance standards, and above average, usually exceeding performance standards. This in no way says to me that Ms. Menard has not fulfilled her duties in such a manner warranting a non-renewal. Quite the opposite, in fact. I find it extraordinary that she has been able to maintain all positive ratings given the complexity and difficulty of guiding our town through an entirely new governmental process. When it comes to the narrative section, Ms. Menard is noted to be skilled in dealing with department heads and is lauded for her ability to manage the town within the constraints of the budget, her promotion of the town both internally and externally, and for her customer service, a far cry from the tenor of the petition. One more data point. 101 residents signed this petition. That's 0.62% of the current population of East Long Meadow. I understand that you are required to hear this petition per our charter, but I urge you to consider that it in no way represents the entire community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. Bruce Moore, 76 Birchland Avenue, East Long Meadow. A while ago, it was brought to the attention of the town manager that there was a situation on the Historical Commission that there was just multiple infractions, to keep it brief, going on there. And with Denise's help and a couple members of the town council, this situation has been alleviated, and we now have a functional board on the Historical Commission. Also, our museum building is situated at 87 Maple Street, next on the, on the Norcross property. And there's been an abusive situation there for a long time also, and that has since been alleviated also, and there's great harmony there now between the Commission and the Norcross Board, which there should have been all along. And with all the idiosyncrasies of everyone in this room and every board member that's appointed or elected in this town, there's no one person alive that can satisfy everybody all the time. So you're going to have some disgruntled people here and there, and all in all, I'd say I'm grateful for what you've done and the town council's done to alleviate the situation for myself and my family. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
George Kingston, 66 Rural Lane, East Long Meadow. I chair the planning board. I understand that planning was brought up in the petition, and I'd just like to say that Ms. Menard helped keep the planning board alive and functioning during a period of over 6 months when we did not have any permanent director. She was very, very supportive of the board and helped us work through that time. She also hired for us a director who, with no disrespect to our previous director, has brought a new level of professionalism to the department and is doing an outstanding job in bringing us into the 21st century in planning. There's been a lot of turmoil in planning, we know that, and part of it is that we are now asking people who come to planning to present plans that meet the standards that are necessary to get the record straight. And sometimes that doesn't always make people happy. But the department is functioning better than it has in my 11, 12 years now as a planning board member. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. Carolyn Brennan, 1 Miles Morgan Road, Wilbraham, but I'm the Executive Director of the Council on Aging.
And Ms. Brennan, before you continue, I respectfully interrupt to say that in discussion with our town council before the meeting, it was agreed between the two of us that should there be non-residents in the audience who wish to speak specific to the petition, that we would, in the interest of transparency and civility, allow that. So, yes.
Thank you. Thank you. The right to petition our government is guaranteed by the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. It's a civic responsibility to be able to circulate a petition. If a group of like-minded people want to bring a concern or a request to a government body, they have a civic responsibility to circulate and publicly support what is presented and then sign it. Every signature on that page should represent individuals who clearly understand the petition and understand why that action is needed. A petition is very serious, and so are the signatures. But when a petition is signed by a voter who does not understand what is being proposed or what the impact of the request means, that contaminates the process of a petition. I was approached by older adults who attend and volunteer at the center asking what I knew of the petition. On the bottom of the petition, it is written, quote, "By signing this petition, I acknowledge that I have read the justification statement attached and agree with the contents." What concerned me the most was that the seniors I spoke to were never shown that piece of paper. There are over 40 signatures out of 100 on that petition age 60 and over. I know that some of those individuals understood exactly what they were signing. However, I know of those who signed it on the basis of what was told to them by the petitioner and did not see the paper. As the Director of the Council on Aging, it is my responsibility to advocate and educate older adults. I am not here to address the content, but the process. In the future, I am asking the public to always be mindful when asking individuals to support a cause or a petition. Please respect the powerful right we have to petition a governing body. This can only be done by ensuring that every signature represents a voter who understands the seriousness and the validity of the issue and what solution the petition is requesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, please? Yes, ma'am.
Susan Grimaldi, 48 Millbrook Drive. I know Ms. Menard now on a different level than when she first came. I've taken a look at her credentials when she was asked to take this position on. She is very qualified. I have had some situations that I had to deal with her. One was the new form, 17 pages for the concert series to be able to take place. I said, "What are you doing? I never had to do this before." And she said, "Just relax." Not that I'm not a very calm, quiet person. So, is it the truth? That's part of the Rotary. But the whole thing came down to, I had issues going along the line. I was able to be directed as a citizen, okay, to areas that I needed to take care of. One was to the health department. Excellent, very responsive, took care of things. I didn't always agree with what was taking place, but I was informed what was taking place. Why? If I had any other questions, it was referred, I could always go through and to do it. Now what ends up happening along the line, there's different things that take place. Part of being a town manager is like the equivalent of representing the town council there. I have seen Denise Menard, if I may say Denise, I have seen her at all different town events, and there hasn't been, even the very first one I was over here, it was a fundraiser for the fire department. Another one was a fundraiser that was going on at the Lions Club. She's representing the town council and our citizens. Anybody had an issue, now, I don't know any single one of you that may have gone to an event that had never had an issue directed to you, okay? People want to have your ear. I've witnessed, I've never seen this woman turn anybody down, say, you know, enough, it's enough, I've heard it, put it into a petition, go see by, she doesn't put you off, she puts you in contact. And on one of my issues, it just so happened that they caught the ear of two of the councilmen, all right? Mr. O'Connor and yourself, Ms. Hill. I got a call back making certain that what my perceived issue was, if I had been dealt with fairly, did I have any additional issues to be taking place? Okay, this is what you expect. When we stood out there with the sign saying change for the charter, it's because we wanted a go-to person. Never did anybody ever say any person is perfect, but I have never seen a harder working individual than what I see in Ms. Menard. And that's why we came here tonight, because as far as I'm concerned, somebody petitioning saying she doesn't deserve a raise. When you work this hard, this is not an easy job, especially being the pioneer. There's a lot of people you're going to step on, not intentionally, but that's the course of this particular position. So it is my recommendation that the council consider giving her the raise that her performance level deserves, not some kind of signatures, because my signature wasn't on it. Nobody else was figuring they had to go put their signature on to say a good job is being done. People expect it. I've seen different, I used to call them before the selectmen shows, but the councilmen having the different meetings that are taped. I've seen the performance level, the professionalism. So on my behalf, I say 100%. I'm really impressed with the skills and that she has exhibited. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else, please? No other public remarks? Seeing none, then I will close the public hearing. At this time, the council will discuss among themselves all points pertinent to the subject matter, if you so please.
I have a comment.
Yes,
if you
sir.
don't mind, through the chair.
Certainly.
As Sarah knows, those of us in the accounting field are slave to minutia and making sure of checks and balances. So having heard that there were 101 signatures on this petition, I found at least one duplication of one couple who signed it more than once, hence makes it less than 100. Second thing is, when I looked at this petition and the signatures, I saw a signature of a lifelong friend of mine, someone who I can say I love because we've been together for 40 plus years. And I called him and I said, I noticed your signature on this petition, and I said, did you sign a petition about the work of our town manager? And he said, what? And I said, well, you've got your names on this petition. He says, I was outside Big Y, and someone came up to me who used to work at Citizens Bank and put the petition in front of me and said, do you mind signing this? And never told him what it was for. And granted, it wasn't a brilliant move on his part to sign it, but I don't think he thought it was what it was. And I'm going to guess, and this is just my personal opinion, not opinion of board or anything, I'm going to guess that's not, as Brennan said, that's not the only case of this happening. So, everyone else has spoken about Denise, which I agree with everything everyone said, but I'm just trying to get to the, once again, the minutia and the nuts and bolts of it. So, thank you. That was just my comment.
Anyone else?
Kathy,
Mr. Ford?
Through the chair. I also had a similar experience, and I happened to call two people on there. And I asked if they knew it was specifically about Denise, the town manager, and one said they did not know that. They thought it was more of just general corruption in town hall that they were signing about. The other one asked who Denise was. That's no joke. They seriously asked who Denise was. So that aside, my issue with this process, and I'm kind of glad that a little bit of time has passed since it was first presented till tonight. It's given me an opportunity to calm down. This, to me, to use a petition is a nuclear option. It's code red. worst-case scenario, you've got to assemble the masses because the government is completely out of control. That is simply not the case. And the damage that's been done by this petition is, you know, in essence, has done more harm to the town of East Long Meadow than anything that was alleged within the petition. Because people think that because a petition was started and there's supposedly enough names, and there clearly was not, and had some of those people taken their name off the petition, it would have fallen short. We wouldn't be talking tonight. But we choose to allow that to go forward, and I think it was a good decision because this needed to be vetted out. It's a good learning lesson on how people should present themselves in the future. When you have an issue with somebody, to attack their character and try and alienate them when they have a year left on their contract, to me is not a smart move. I would choose not to do this. I would try to find some common ground. I would volunteer for something. I would make sure that I given more than one opportunity before I chose an option like this. So I take exception to this, and there is no factual basis for this stuff. They can't possibly know some of the stuff that was purported in the charter because I don't know of this stuff, and I'm closer to the business of the day-to-day. But there's two aspects of this charter, and we're one.
Petition or charter, Joe?
Was that?
Petition or the charter?
The charter. There's two aspects of the charter, right? There's Denise's side, and then there's what we do. And we don't meddle into the day-to-day operations of it, but that's what the charter says. It's the power that was given to her. The majority of people voted on that. That's not, she didn't give herself limitless power. Whoever created the charter, and with the help of the Collins, group, and they helped form that. And it's not a perfect document, but it's a hell of a lot better than it was. So in making a transition of this magnitude, to go to a point where you've got a new form of government and new departments and new titles and all this transition, yeah, there's going to be some people that left and were disgruntled. But, there's not, people running out the door there. There's a general, consensus there from the people that I interact with that we've made improvements. So it doesn't speak to the improvements that have been made. It talks to the negative, and some of the negatives are frankly untrue. I don't think I need to go through them point by point, and I really should get off my soapbox, but I'm glad that some people have come in support. I see a lot of employees here, and I think that speaks volumes as well, that they come and show their support and they voice their opinion. Some people that are on committees that volunteer their time show their support as well, because this is not, I do not think that this option was called for in this particular instance. I'm glad that we're talking through it. And in the future, if somebody does put a petition together, that I'd like to see a little bit more thought, frankly, go into, what you're accomplishing, what your agenda is, and what that ultimately means to an employee of the town that's under contract. And we're not going to talk about her contract because she's under contract, and it's premature to discuss somebody who's under contract for another 11 months. So her contract discussions will come at some point, and we'll have to address them, and we'll talk through that. But in the meantime, I'm not going to have any problem whatsoever voting for her raise. It was an above average, report by us, and she's deserving of it. So that's where I stand on the matter.
I just want to say, the first 2 years that I was sitting in your seat, Kathy, I worked closely with Denise. And a lot of these things I'm reading in this petition, I was in town hall quite a bit. And again, agreeing with Joe, there's change. Change is difficult for people. There's some things that needed to be changed by charter. There's some things that need to be changed because we needed to change them. And there's people that get upset, and change is difficult for people. Sometimes we had to do what we had to do to make sure the best interest of the town was met. I think that Denise does that every day. I was in town hall quite a bit, obviously evidenced by the employees that are here. There's a lot in here about what happens in town hall, and people are disgruntled about this or that. And the only thing I see is employees sitting here in support because they had an opportunity to get up here and say whatever it was they wanted to say, and they didn't say it. So there's no validity to the complaint, in my opinion, because the employees are here in support of a town manager who has done her best to give the town what we asked for. To character assassinate somebody on a piece of paper based on some hearsay and rumor of 0.6% of the population, or whatever that number is, Karen, I don't know, but I was impressed by that. It's ludicrous. The performance appraisals that were done for Denise, the system that we came up with while I was in the chair spot was for that specific purpose, so that it could be an aggregate average of what we all thought. So there's 7 different individuals sitting up here. We all had interactions with departments heads over our course of time here. We've had a ton of interaction with citizens throughout the time that we've been here. And never have I heard, there's a complaint here and there, of course, there's going to be complaints about certain things, day-to-day operational stuff. It's not our, day-to-day operations isn't our business, first of all, and we didn't make it that way. People, the town voted for that to happen, to be that way. That wasn't my choice. So we go back to that. You look at what the townspeople wanted is this structure. That was the option that we took because we needed to change things. Was it easy? No, it wasn't easy. Would I want to be in Denise's shoes every day for 2 years, banging my head against a wall? No. I was next to her, but I didn't really have a choice.
You're too far from the wall.
Right. So, in my opinion, Denise deserves an adequate raise in accordance with her performance appraisal, which was an aggregate average of what the 7 individuals that were elected to rate her for did. And did it go up? No. Did it go down slightly? Yes. Is there some wavering between years, but did it go down to a 0? No. So my opinion is, I've spent a lot of time with Denise over the last couple of years, and, she's a dedicated employee. I'll drive by the office and call at 6 o'clock. Why she's still sitting in the office, I don't have any idea, but, she gives a lot to this town. She does a lot of things that, other people may not do, and, she deserves the credit for the job that she does every day. And she's been a great professional, a great asset to the town. And I just think to character assassinate somebody over whatever it is that you think, and you get 100 signatures to do so, is absurd. And that's my opinion, and that's all I'm going to say.
Anyone else? What I'd like to say, 2 points. First, I would echo the remarks already that the charter was designed with the help of the Collins Center and the 9 charter members on the commission. And it's what is called a strong town manager model. And that is exactly what the voters voted on. For the benefit of this audience as well as any viewers, the charter also requires, there's a paragraph in the charter, and I ought to know it by heart because I've probably read this charter 100+ times to stay up to date on it, but regardless of where it falls in the charter, that speaks to the fact that since it was the original document, and it is a living document, and we are a new government, and we learn as we go, and we can tell you, all 7 of us, that there are things that we've been part of over the past 2.5 years that we know bear some review of, and we are already we have been taking notes on how to refine things, whether it be in the charter itself or suggestions to Denise about how, though it's not our role to dictate operational decisions, but giving her input on how things go. And that said, the charter requires us in the year 2020 to conduct a review of the original document, which means another 9 folks have to come together. I suppose it doesn't have to be 9, but it needs to be an odd number for voting purposes. But I would be hesitant to go less than 9 because you want a broad perspective. So you will be hearing that in this year 2019, that I will be looking for volunteers to sit on another charter commission for the specific purpose of looking it over and looking for ways to refine it and to make it better in enough time, because then because of the nature of the charter, it has to go back to the voters in June of 2020 for subsequent passage. So please know that we all sit here and know that there's always room for improvement. And we take that role responsibly, that we are making our notes about how the process can be improved. I will go so far as to say maybe 5 months ago, Denise and I had a conversation about the charter, and she acknowledges that the strong town manager model might be too strong. And she herself has recommendations that she'll give this charter commission on where there could be a shift of some of the power to the council. And I don't know the details. We didn't dive into that conversation, but there is an acknowledgement by the manager that some modifications need to be considered. I think we all as individuals go through that same process in our own lives, and as employees in our own worlds. Your supervisor gives you a rating, and you may not like it, but it's in most cases a true reflection of your work. And then there is a plan of how you would go forward to improve that. And I can speak freely that in this case, this council will do that with this manager, to say if there's specific room for improvement, these are the steps we would recommend you take to make the government of the town of East Long Meadow better, i.e., and that trickles down to her performance. So,
Kathy, just one quick comment I just want to add on that, because you bring up a great point. People who are power hungry and they're political minded and they tend to hoard power don't voluntarily offer to give power away. She has stated more than once on camera, especially when it comes to areas where we've talked about long-term contracts or large-size contracts, this is something that'll come to you and I would choose not to make this decision on my own. Okay, that's a character trait. So, you know, those things and other positive improvements that we've made in town, certainly around customer service and other areas, are a huge asset to East Long Meadow. And I'm glad you brought up that point, because I had forgotten to mention that. So thank you.
and my point was finished. Period.
I am now finished.
Anyone else? Okay, that said, then the council has two options. We can take a vote to act on the matter of the charter, or to take the matter under advisement.
Petition of the charter.
I'm sorry, the petition. Yes, thank you. To approve the matter of the petition, or to take the matter under advisement.
Make a motion to take the matter under advisement.
Second.
Motion has been made to take the matter of the petition and all of the public comments, that's my addition, under advisement. Any further discussion? All those in favor of doing so, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Thank you. And again, thank you for your presence for this hearing, and for those of you who came before us to speak. We appreciate that input. As most of us have intimated in our remarks, we take our responsibilities as elected officials very seriously. As Mr. Manley has indicated, much of what happens in this town government, exclusive of town hall with the council, doesn't happen on a Tuesday evening every other week. It happens on Wednesdays and Thursdays and Fridays and over the weekend and Mondays and Saturdays and Sundays. And if you go to public events in town, you see at least one of us at every public event. We're very careful not to miss a public event, a ribbon cutting, whatever the case may be. And all of us are involved in subcommittees. And apart from my responsibilities now as chair that take me into the town hall at minimum twice a week, we spend a fair amount of time in subcommittees and doing legwork and speaking with constituents, as one of the speakers alluded to this evening. We follow up. If I get emails, if we get phone calls, we follow up. So there is, and we don't do it to get a pat on the back, and we don't do it so that it's listed in the reminder. But for people who don't understand that aspect, the behind-the-scenes work is probably in excess of 80% of our roles as elected officials. So I say this with all sincerity. This council takes our responsibilities as it relates to a citizen's petition very seriously. We will take it under advisement, and we will do our very best to make the best decision possible. Thank you. May I have a motion to move back into regular order?
Madam President, we have two readings, 7 and 7:10. Should we just take those?
You're right. I'm sorry.
Just a quick comment. We could probably go right back into those if we just quickly deal with this and maybe move it to another time.
Right.
Just that way it'll clean it right up.
Then we move back into order. Do that, and there's a reason we're going that way, and then we'll go right to the public
I'll make a motion
hearing.
that we go back into order, which is matter 8C, item 2.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded to move back into normal order. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Item 8C2, Town Manager Compensation and 2019 Goals. I will state my position on that and ask if anyone else would like to make a recommendation. Following the remarks I just made, I don't believe tonight is the evening to address compensation and/or goals, since we're taking it under advisement. So I would recommend that this matter be tabled until our February 12th meeting. That's a recommendation. If you...
A second.
Well, it's just a recommendation.
I'll make that motion that it gets continued to our February 12th meeting.
I'll second that.
I'd prefer to talk about it tonight.
Me too.
All right, well, let me do the motion. You can vote, and then yes, it's fine. Motion's been made to table and move to February 12th. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
How many nay? I didn't.
2.
2 nays. So the motion carries.
3 nays.
I'm sorry. 4-3. All right, we need to then move now. We have no new business tonight, Mr. Florence?
Not tonight.
Okay, so back to public hearings. 9B, a proposed zoning bylaw amendment, section 5.8 signs, and this is a second reading. The reason for this public hearing is to read for the second time a new proposed zoning law to amend section 5.8 signs. Again, I'll introduce the members of the council. From my left, Councilors Federici, Manley, Anderson, Hill, Kane, O'Connor, and Ford. I reviewed the protocol, but I'm required to repeat it again at the risk of being redundant. I'll open the public hearing. The clerk will read it into the record. The applicant, in this case the planning board, will read for a second time the proposed zoning bylaw and discuss it. The meeting is being recorded, so if you're coming to the microphone, please state your name and address for the record. Address the council and no one else in the audience. At that time, after the public hearing is closed, the council will discuss among themselves pertinent to the proposed amendment. The council will then take a vote to approve or not the proposed zoning bylaw amendment to section 5.8 and take the matter under advisement. That being said, I will now open the public hearing. Mr. Florence, will you please read the notice into the record?
Yes. East Long Meadow Town Council will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, January 22nd, 2019 at 7 p.m. in the auditorium of the Council on Aging located at 328 North Main Street to address a proposed bylaw amendment to the Town of East Long Meadow zoning bylaws, section 5.8, signs. Information relating to this proposed bylaw is on file with the town clerk and available for review by the public. For the council, Thomas Florence, clerk of the council.
Thank you. Now, the applicant, in this case, the planning board, will read for the second time, although Councilor Kane will do that for you, and then you can begin your presentation or your remarks.
Okay, here we go. The purpose of this bylaw amendment is to repeal sections of the East Long Meadow zoning bylaw approved by town meeting October 27th of 2014, which stipulate that all sign application permits must go before the planning board for review and approval. After conferring with the building commissioner, we now respectfully propose to streamline the review of the sign application to promote efficiency in the permitting process by designating certain powers to the building commissioner. Pursuant to Chapter 40A, Section 7 of Mass General Laws, the inspector of buildings, building commissioner, or local inspector, or if there are none in a town, the Board of Selectmen or a person or board designated by a local ordinance or bylaw shall be charged with the enforcement of the zoning ordinance or bylaw. Furthermore, as defined by the Town of East Long Meadow zoning bylaw, zoning enforcement authority, the building commissioner is charged with enforcing all zoning bylaws of East Long Meadow 7.5.3 definitions.
Thank you.
There's a motion to go with that.
So this is, as we've talked about, a way of streamlining the process of getting signs approved. Since the building commissioner is the one who enforces the zoning bylaw as relates to signs, and also knows the building code as it relates to signs, he is the one who's going to enforce this. So he should be the one who approves it. Right now, approving signs not only takes up a lot of time at planning board meetings, but also it delays the business owner by up to 3 weeks for getting a sign approved, because we have to advertise it, and we only meet every other week. So it can be 3 or sometimes 4 weeks, depending on the number of weeks in the month, before someone can get a sign approved. This will streamline the process and make it more customer-friendly.
I have nothing to add. No, I'm Connie Broaders, Planning and Community Development Director for the Town of East Long Meadow, 6415 Bigelow Commons, Enfield, Connecticut, for the record. I have nothing further to add. I wrote the proposal. The chair added his comments, and we ask that you kindly move this zoning petition forward so that we may become more streamlined and efficient in our approach to granting sign permits.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone from the audience who wishes to speak on this matter? Mr. Page.
Ralph Page, 306 Prospect Street. I would agree with the planning board that we need to move this along, and I think the proposal's good. My only question would be, as far as right now, the planning board would vote on it. If someone didn't like the vote, they could appeal the decision to the Zoning Board of Appeals. They would see it on TV, they would say, no, I don't agree with this, and be able to appeal it. With the building inspector doing it, the only way that you're going to know is once the sign goes up, and by the time the sign goes up, it may be already past the appeal period. I'm just curious if there's any way to...
Merge that.
Exactly, and like I said, it's not that I'm against it, because I think this will make it a lot more efficient. I'm just curious on if there's a way to streamline it like that, so that if someone has an appeal, it can still go through. Thank you.
Well, that's a point well taken. However, our current zoning bylaw gives the dimensions and the materials and the construction and the height and the setbacks. It's all outlined in our current zoning bylaw. So my concern is, what are we regulating? And at this point, at this time, we don't have design guidelines for signs embodied within our bylaw. So until we reach that point where we might be able to regulate the type of colors and materials and the other architectural elements, we really don't have that power. And we also want to be very cautious in our sign ordinance based on Reed versus Gilbert, Arizona. And that was a landmark Supreme Court case a couple of years ago that challenged many of the current sign bylaws that had been implemented by municipalities. So moving forward, when we update our current zoning bylaw, we will certainly look at addressing the shortcomings and make those improvements. But right now, we're working with what we have, and we simply want to be able to make it a little bit easier for businesses to get their signs up and not have to come before the planning board and have them simply rubber stamp.
Okay, yes.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, wait, that has to be asked after the public input, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Anyone else from the audience would like to speak on this matter? Seeing none, then the public hearing is concluded. Mr. Ford, now you can speak.
So just a point of clarification then, so the person doing the approvals is also doing the enforcement. Would there be any reason why you would improve something that doesn't meet the bylaw standards?
No.
No.
And from past experience, I know that building commissioners can choose to be selective in enforcement. Okay, we've had building commissioners who were selective in enforcement. With our current building commissioner, that's not an issue. And clearly, I can't see him issuing a building permit for a sign that doesn't meet the zoning bylaw. Right now, he makes the zoning determination before it goes to the planning board and says, yes, this meets the criteria. And we rely on that in our votes.
And you're just rubber stamping it and then essentially...
Pretty much,
so just, yeah. Delaying up to 3-4 weeks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Anderson.
Just a thought in furthering transparency is perhaps we can reach out to the building department to put a list either on a twice a month or monthly level of what signs they've approved, and then have this posted on our website and further posted on our social media venues like Facebook, and a very easy to understand, so that way the citizens can read that these just got approved. It's a very simple narrative, and preserve any type of rights, and it also lets the people know what's going on.
We will take that under advisement with the building commissioner.
Great, and if you don't mind, let us know how the person's advisement turns out.
The advisee's position.
Other comments from the council? Hearing none, the next point is for the council to take a vote to approve or not the proposed zoning bylaw amendment to section 5.8.
I've got the motion. I'd like to propose a motion to approve a new zoning bylaw amendment, section 5.8, signs, as read into the minutes at the January 8th, 2019 and January 22nd, 2019 council meetings.
So moved.
Second.
Third.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor,
Aye.
please say aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, 9C, proposed zoning bylaw amendment, section 8, definitions, commercial vehicles. The reason for this public hearing is to read for a second time a new proposed zoning bylaw to amend Section 8, definitions, commercial vehicles. Counselors from left to right are Federici, Manley, Anderson, Hill, Kane, and Ford. I will open the public meeting, ask the clerk to read it into the notice, and in the interest of brevity, follow the same procedures we have followed from the last two. That said, I'll now open the public hearing. Mr. Florence, will you read the notice into the record?
Yes. The East Long Meadow Town Council will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, January 22nd, 2019, at 7:10 p.m. in the auditorium of the Council on Aging, located at 328 North Main Street, to address a proposed bylaw amendment to the Town of East Long Meadow zoning bylaw Section 8 definitions, specifically commercial vehicles. Information relating to this proposed bylaw is on file with the town clerk and available for review by the public. For the council, Thomas Florence, clerk of the council.
Thank you. George or Connie, do you?
I don't have a copy of the definition.
I'm sorry, Councilor Anderson has to read it.
Oh, you want one of us to do it?
sorry.
Yeah, somebody?
Town of East Long Meadow zoning bylaw amendment, commercial vehicles. Purpose. For the purpose of the amendment and clarifying Section 8 definitions under Town of East Long Meadow zoning bylaw, the following words shall have the meanings given here and after. Commercial vehicle, any vehicle currently registered as such with the State Registry of Motor Vehicles or equivalent out-of-state or federal agency and is used primarily in the conduct of business as evidenced by signage or other commercial enhancements to the vehicle, as opposed to a private, family, or individual use. Where appropriate, the plural shall include the singular. Definitions are provided strictly for clarification. They are not to be interpreted as permissible or allowable unless stated in the table of uses within this zoning bylaw proposed by the Town of East Long Meadow Planning Board and its Planning and Community Development Director.
Thank you. Now,
So,
Mr. Kingston.
Currently, we do not have the definition of commercial vehicle in the bylaw. Therefore, we refer to the dictionary for a definition of a commercial vehicle. And the dictionary says, any commercial vehicle is one which is designed to be used in commerce, basically, which includes every pickup truck in the world, okay? We know that a lot of people drive pickup trucks for personal use. Some of them have commercial plates because of the size of the pickup truck. There's a state regulation that says that. So our building commissioner felt that the bylaw as currently written was not enforceable because he wasn't going to go around and knock on doors and say, do you use that pickup truck in your business or not, if it doesn't have anything on it. So after much discussion, we decided that the real issue was not whether you used it in business or not, because you could have a sedan that you use in business that doesn't have commercial plates, but rather what we call rolling billboards. These are trucks or cars that have signs on them that basically advertise a business. And most of the input we get from citizens is about these kinds of trucks being parked in driveways or on the street, basically advertising the business in a residential zone, which is not something that people like to see. So we wrote this definition to give the building commissioner an enforceable definition that he could use that would not be onerous to people who drive pickup trucks because they like pickup trucks or drive vans because they like vans. And it will address the problem of the visual pollution of rolling billboards without being overly onerous on the public. It does not change at all the regulations for commercial vehicles in residential areas, which basically say that you're allowed one commercial vehicle and it has to be either garaged or screened. So that's why we bring this to you.
Okay. Bless you. Anyone in the audience wish to comment on this?
Anthony Bellamino, 11 Bryn Mawr Street, Drive in East Long Meadow. This is bizarre. Commercial vehicle is a commercial vehicle. I don't understand. I was forced to sign up for the Small Business Association, which cost me about $5,000 for signs for the fence, because I had a sign on my truck. On my truck, it says Tony Vellamino Painting. That's all it says. Operate a business out of the house is working in the house. I don't work in the house. What you're saying here is, all you got to do is look in the registration of the vehicle to find out if the person's a business owner or not. I don't understand where this is coming from. And my truck is a commercial vehicle, but I also have on my policy that I use it for personal use. And that's required by the insurance company. But to change the bylaws now, what they're doing, I just don't follow what's being said here. I'd like it a little bit more clearer. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir.
Ralph Page, 306 Prospect Street. What our zoning bylaw says, Section 8 under definitions, is again, words not defined within the zoning bylaw shall have the definition of Merriam-Webster's unabridged dictionary. I have that here. Their definition is specific. A vehicle that is designed for commercial use. Not one that's used in commercial use or whatever. It's designed for commercial use, which would include any pickup truck, any van that's not set up for hauling passengers. Under parentheses, it goes further to say, as the transportation of cargo other than passengers, which means a school bus is not considered a commercial vehicle. If you took our definition right now and put it to use, anyone that parked a pickup truck in their driveway would be in violation. That's not what the town wants. That's not what's been enforced. What the planning board is trying to do is say, hey, listen, the vehicle with all this signage on it, that has ladders on it, that has this or that, those are the ones that we're concerned about. We're not concerned about just any commercial vehicle. I'm for the definition. I am a small business owner in town. I do know that people with a single truck park there. Do I find it offensive? No, I don't. Right now, they would have to screen it or garage it unless they were under the home-based trade bylaw, which, like Tony was, you spent a ton of money, you had your property assessed, and you literally had a special permit to do that. Everyone else would be in violation. The only other comment that I have is what was read tonight into the law. I would just suggest that we start with commercial vehicle and we end with use, because where appropriate, the plural shall include the singular. That's already listed under Section 8 in definitions. Definitions are provided strictly for clarification. That's already under definitions in the first paragraph. We don't need to keep repeating it. We just need a definition strictly of the commercial vehicle. Thank you.
Any other comments from the audience? Yes, sir.
I'm Robert Hill from 31 Oakbrook Drive in East Long Meadow. I have a problem with the commercial enhancement section of that. It was described at the previous meeting that this was read, that commercial enhancement could be a toolbox in the back of the pickup truck. I know of quite a few people that own pickup trucks with toolboxes in the back that do not use them for commercial reasons. I think that definition is way too vague for anybody, including the enforcement officer, to enforce this. So that's the reason I don't think this is right.
Anybody else from the audience? Seeing no one else, the public hearing is closed. At this time, the council has an opportunity to comment and discuss. Kevin, I think.
Nope. Okay, thank you. I think the bylaw addresses Mr. Hill's concern by saying it has to be primarily in the conduct of business. I think that prevents the person who recreationally, whatever, likes to have his or her tools in the vehicle. If they use it incidentally, that's one thing. It's primary. That's, I think, the standard they're going to use. What I was curious about is you heard comments from Mr. Villameno and Mr. Page. Any responses to them?
In regard to Mr. Page, that was the comments that he was
About
making.
deleting a certain provision?
Yeah, when you advertise, you have to make sure that you give everything.
Right.
So that is already embodied in the definitions, and we wouldn't be repeating that. Simply the definition for commercial vehicle, as you see it, would be what we would be amending.
So where would this end? So if we are voting on it?
You'd be commercial vehicle, any vehicle currently registered as such with the State Registry of Motor Vehicles or equivalent out-of-state or federal agency, and is used primarily in the conduct of a business as evidenced by signage or other commercial enhancements to the vehicle, as opposed to private family or individual use.
That's where it ends?
Yeah.
So we're voting on
Well, where
is
appropriate, the plural shall include the
Right.
singular, because you could say commercial vehicles.
Okay.
Mhm.
So we would include the last sentence.
Definitions are provided strictly for clarification. He would not be including
That
that in
part's
the
not going to be in
definition.
there?
No.
No.
Okay.
And as far as Mr. Villameno, we'd be perhaps happy to sit down and talk with him about the understanding of this definition and how it might apply. I guess I'm not quite sure what.
Can I just add something? Yes. The bottom line is we're not changing the bylaw. We're adding a definition.
We're just
to clarify
Correct.
what. So if you have to put a screen up now or garage the thing, you got to do it anyway.
Yes.
That's what we're asking you. But we're just getting to a specific to say, by the way, the rolling billboard that's parked in your street, you already have to screen it or put it in a garage. There's no change to that.
No.
So everybody that has to screen them or put them in a garage now has to do the same thing.
Yes, sir.
Just to make it easier to say, your truck has all this lettering on the side of it, you got to put it in a garage or screen it, right? I mean, that's
it.
really what we're looking at.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But if you think about, Kathy, through Kathy, how long we've been talking about this, how many years we've been dealing with this? Well, not just us,
Well, it was
this goes
before
back
us.
before
Right.
us. And then it went to, something was put in place, but it wasn't enforced. And then we have a change of the guard, and now he's saying he can't enforce it because it's not enforceable. Because the way that it's currently written is asking for language. There's a lot of people, I have people on my street, who, have never let this issue die, and they, it just keeps coming up and coming up. And now that's all we're trying to do is get to a point where the person who's doing enforcement can have some teeth to what he's enforcing and make sense of the bylaw, not target people. He's not trying to target people that are using these stuff for individual purposes, and lots of people own trucks, and I think that's why there was that clarification. So I understand how it could seem confusing, but I think there's a good way to clarify it, that we're not changing the bylaw. This isn't a new bylaw. It's an amendment of a definition to an existing bylaw so that it can be enforced.
Correct.
That's it. And if somebody who has like a Ram 1500 with a passenger plate that has a toolbox on
It's not a Ram,
it,
it's a
is not gonna get fined if that's in
GMC
their parking
Sierra,
lot.
just so you know.
And no lettering on it?
I have no lettering
No
on it.
ladder racks?
Nope, well, no. First of all, I'm not doing any of that type of work. I'm retired, buddy.
There's a lot of that.
Like it's tagged in the schoolyard.
Right.
Through the chair, I think what we are trying to do is protect quite a few of our residents that could spend $50,000 plus on a beautiful pickup truck, and they choose to register it with a commercial plate. And it's not just overweight. I mean, it could be a tax advantage for them, but it's their right. And those vehicles aren't offensive. Those vehicles look 10 times better than maybe a passenger car. So under this clarification, the commercial plate isn't defining the vehicle. As a vehicle, it's breaking the bylaw or not conforming. So that's been corrected. So that was the majority of the phone calls I was getting was, you know, you could have two identical trucks, right? One in one neighbor's yard, one in another neighbor's yard. One has a commercial plate on it, one has a residential or a passenger plate. What's the difference? Just the license plate. And we are not going to, or our building inspector is not going to, you know, target somebody because they chose to put a commercial plate on it for either tax purposes or the weight. So I think we're taking care of those residents. So.
Any further comment from the council? Okay, who has the motion here, or is it me?
I think I got it. I'll make a motion to approve a new zoning bylaw amendment, Section 8 definitions, commercial vehicles, as read into the minutes at the January 8th, 2019 and January 22nd, 2019 council meetings.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. Motion's approved.
I forgot to say aye. I'm on the aye list.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is executive session.
Would you like a motion?
I would entertain now a motion to move into executive session and only return to regular session for the purpose of adjournment.
So moved.
Seconded.
Second.
All those in favor of moving to executive?
Roll call.
Oh, yes. All those in favor by roll call. Mr. Federici?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Okay. So we are now moving to executive session, and we will return only for the purpose of moving to adjournment.